Skin, bones and muscles, tendons and nerves. Put them all together and what do you get? One of the most amazing pieces of equipment ever imagined, the human hand. Marvellously complex, our hands enrich our lives by providing us with dexterity, strength and sensitivity. Life would be very different if you didn't have complete control of your hands. Just stop to consider how much you actually depend on your hands, working, playing, eating. There are very few times in your life when you're not asking your hands to perform some task for you. In fact, a major portion of your brain is devoted specifically to sending signals to and from your hands. And precisely because we use our hands so often, and in so many ways, there's a great risk of injury to them. Nowhere is this more true than in your workplace. 25% of all industrial accidents involve injuries to the hands and fingers. Puncture wounds, abrasions and lacerations, severe burns and dermatitis, even amputation. The hazards are real and all around you. You cannot afford to disregard them, because if you do, you place at risk two irreplaceable tools, your hands. There are three important steps in guarding against hand injury. First, you must be aware of the potential hazards in your workplace. Second, you must discipline yourself to follow the safe working procedures that have been taught to you. And lastly, it is critical that you make appropriate use of the protective equipment. Now let's take a look at some of the hazards you're likely to confront. After all, forewarned is forearmed. In any workplace, the everyday activities such as lifting, pulling, operating machines, in fact any manual handling activity, puts the hands at risk. Each situation should be evaluated and the hazard controlled. Objects that are too big, hot or cold, too heavy, are moving, have sharp edges, contain hazardous substances, all of these can cause serious harm, and of course not only to hands. Crushed fingers, burns, sprains and cuts to the hands are common injuries which can be avoided by utilising the safety equipment available. Special lifting devices, wearing appropriate protective clothing and following correct manual handling and safety procedures will help minimise the risk of hand injuries. Hand tools are the cause of many hand injuries, which usually result when the wrong tool is used or a tool is used for a task for which it was not designed. Tools should always be in good condition and used in accordance with your safety procedures. This is a very common occurrence in many workplaces and is clearly very dangerous. The correct procedure, as we all know, is to always cut away from the body. However, how often is this rule disregarded? Mechanical hazards exist wherever machinery is in use. The point of operation, the business end of these machines, can be very dangerous unless the hazard is controlled. Depending on the function of the equipment, hands can be cut, punctured or crushed at the point of operation. You must keep your hands well away from all moving parts. Another danger associated with machinery occurs when operating parts come close enough together and with enough force that your hand can be pulled into the works. Called in-running nip points, these forces can cut, crush or perhaps sever your hands or fingers. It is vitally important that you remove watches, rings or any other jewellery when working around in-running nip points. Make certain your hair is well out of the way and never wear loose-fitting clothes such as neckties or long shirt sleeves with the buttons undone, because they might become trapped in the moving machine parts. Fortunately, many machines are equipped with various types of safeguards. Fixed guards cover the mechanical hazard at all times. Intermittent guards move as the machine goes through its cycle. This allows work to be fed into the machine. Movable guards allow access to the machine. Generally, they are equipped with electrical interlocks which stop the machine from operating unless the guards are in place. Safe distance from dangerous points of operation, as with this table saw. The simple use of a push stick greatly increases worker safety. Or when cleaning away debris, always use a brush. Let's review some safety tips for you to keep in mind when working around machinery. First and foremost, be alert. Concentrate on the job before you. Keep your hands away from moving parts. And always try to anticipate dangerous situations. Maintain safeguards. Make sure electrical interlocks are operating correctly before commencing work. And never remove or tamper with safeguards. They are there for your protection. Remove jewellery and loose clothing, as they are very dangerous when working with moving machine parts. Wear appropriate gloves if required by the task. And always practice good housekeeping. A clean work environment means greater safety.
Contact hazards are another source of danger to your hands. A big problem is they don't always look dangerous, but they're there in your work environment. What are the different types of contact injuries, and how should you protect yourself from them?
First, there is the risk of burns. These can come from a number of sources. Steam pipes are often hot enough to burn instantly and deeply. We often forget that certain engine parts can be extremely hot, and when we reach in without thinking, serious burns can be the result. Molten metals or anything involved with molten materials carry obvious potential for serious burn injuries. Exposed and poorly maintained electrical wiring not only pose the threat of burns, but can, as we all know, cause death from severe electrical shock. Some gases and liquids, such as LP gas and liquid nitrogen, can exist at a low enough temperature to burn you. Substances such as acids and corrosives can cause serious burns, but they are also the source of a different but equally devastating injury to your hands.
Contact dermatitis is unfortunately a very common problem. It results from direct skin contact with foreign irritating substances such as chemicals, solvents like kerosene, acids and cleansers.
Some people have allergic reactions to particular substances that don't affect others, but most frequently, contact dermatitis results from chemical irritations that affect everyone. Initially, the skin will become rough, red and raw. Itching associated with cracked, dry skin is prevalent. Depending on what substance you've been exposed to, you may develop pimple-like sores on your skin. The initial responses are generally mild, but repeated exposure tends to worsen the condition. Biological sources can cause just as many problems. Bacteria, fungi and viruses make agricultural, laboratory and food workers particularly vulnerable to dermatitis. Also, serious infections can develop from even the most minor cuts.
The key to preventing contact dermatitis is to practice correct hand hygiene and to use personal protection appropriate to the hazard you will meet.
Wash your hands regularly during work, after any direct contact with the irritants, and especially before eating or smoking. It's also a good idea to change your work clothes at regular intervals. Personal protection comes in two forms: barrier creams and gloves. Barrier creams are best used in conjunction with other personal protection, such as gloves. Be certain your skin is clean before application and reapply liberally during the work period. By far the most reliable protection comes from the correct use of gloves. There are many types available, and they should be selected according to the requirements of your job. It is also important that they fit properly. Too small and they will cause hand fatigue. Too large and you run the risk of getting them caught. Rubber, vinyl or neoprene gloves are best used around acids, corrosives or petroleum products. Metal mesh gloves are cut resistant and excellent for those who use knives or cutting tools. Leather gloves are good when your hands are in contact with rough surfaces and objects that can scratch. Plastic film gloves are best used when contact with mild substances is anticipated. These are most commonly used in the food industries. There are many other types of gloves available. Be certain to talk to your supervisor about the type of gloves which are best suited to your work. And remember, after work, even if you've been using your gloves faithfully, practice good hygiene and wash your hands and forearms thoroughly.
If the worst does happen and an accident occurs, prompt attention is crucial in preventing the injury from becoming worse. As we've seen, the best way to prevent hand injuries is to think ahead.
Be aware of the potential hazards in your workplace. When new hazards are identified, raise them with your supervisor. Follow company policy regarding hand protection. Keep safety shields in place. Wear appropriate protective equipment. Wash your hands frequently when working with chemicals. Make sure you always follow good housekeeping practices. And finally, plan your actions out thoughtfully. Don't get distracted.
You may have some good ideas of your own for improving hand safety in your workplace. Talk them over with your supervisor. He'll be glad to listen. By working together, you can create a safer environment that will help assure you a future enriched by healthy, active hands.